Welcome back. Today is day 7 in our factoring unit. So far you have learned how to factor when c is positive. In this lesson you will learn how to factor when c is negative. It makes your work a little more challenging, but let's see how it goes. Oh yeah, our do now problem is a which one doesn't belong. I love these. Your job is to find a reason for why each problem A, B, C, D is different from the others. There could be many different answers for each one. So pause the video, take a few minutes to find a reason why each problem doesn't belong, and then resume the video when finished. Alright, so let's go over this which one doesn't belong. If I'm looking at A, first thing I notice on A is that we're missing the factors on the side. So I know that there would be an x tau that goes here, an x tau goes here, a 1 unit, a 1 unit, a 1 unit, an x tau on this side, and a 1 unit there, which means that this would factor out to be an x plus 1 times an x plus 3. So there are the factors for that area right there, for that rectangle. And the second problem, so I would just say we're missing for A. A doesn't belong because we're missing the factors on the outside. For B, B doesn't belong. B doesn't belong. I would say probably because of this term and this term. Both of my units and my factors are going to have a negative value. So for instance, let's write our factors out. So the factors for this one right here would be x subtract 3 and 2x subtract 1. So what I'm saying is that the subtract 3 and the subtract 1, there's going to be negative on both of those. So that might be one of them. Or we can say something about that I'm going to have negative x's on both sides of my rectangle. So that might be another one I can say. B doesn't belong. And for C, what can we say about C? C, I would say it's the only one with a negative value here. So the unit tiles are negative. So if we were to write this area, this one is, well, we have x squared. This x would cancel out with this x, leaving us with 2x, and then minus 3. So it's the only one that has this last value. We call it the C value. We'll learn that later on. The C value is negative. So only one with a negative C value. So hopefully you saw that when you were doing these. Another thing you can say, and I just thought of it right now, was that it's the only one where units will cancel out. So I have some x units that will cancel out. And just to review real quick, if I was to write this out, I would write this as x subtract 3. This is my factors, and x plus 1. So now looking at the tiles, or looking at our factors, I can see that we have a negative sign here and a negative sign here. This one only has one negative sign, and the first one's both positives. Alright, so that's about it for this which one doesn't belong. Alright, so factoring today is going to be a little different than what we've previously been learning. Not much, but there's kind of a big idea that we need to see. So let's go ahead and start factoring number 1. So number 1, just like we've been doing, we know this is going to factor out to be something like this. We look at our x squared term first, we get x times x. Okay, but now here's where the difference happens. Let's take a look now at this value here. This is a negative 3. So let's take a look at the picture on the bottom. So we notice that we have a negative 3. We have negative 3 unit tiles here. Now what you should notice is that what happens is that we are going to have, to get a negative value, we need to multiply a positive times a negative. So on this one we have a positive 1, and over here we have a negative 3. So what's negative 3 times positive 1? Negative 3. That's where that comes from. So automatically you should know when you see this C value, when you see this value being a negative, you should know that your signs are going to be plus and minus. So one of them needs to be a positive, one of them needs to be a negative. I usually don't try to figure it out yet, but I just know from the very beginning that one has to be positive, one has to be negative. So let's do the problem like we've been doing. So my factors of 3, well, I like this because 3 is prime and the only way to get 3 is 3 times 1, so that's beautiful. So I'm going to write in my 3 and my 1. And now I need to figure out what are my signs going to be. Oh man, well, I messed up. Let me back up real quick. So a 3 and a 1. Now we need to figure out our signs. Remember we said one of your signs needs to be positive, one of them needs to be negative. Well, think about it. If we're trying to make a -2, then I believe the 3 should be negative. Let's check this. Let's make that one negative and this one positive. So let's check this real quick. Let's see if that works. So when I multiply these out, we get -3x. And I multiply these ones, I'm going to get +1x. And the sum of that is -2x. So yes, we're correct. So that's the difference. The only difference that we're going to have in this problem is yesterday in the previous problems, our signs were either negative and negative or positive and positive. That's because our C value was a positive. That's because yesterday this number was a positive number. So, but now that's a negative, we know we're going to have to use a positive and negative sign. So let's try the next problem. Problem number 2. Same thing. So we're going to factor this one out. Okay, and let's go ahead. Let's take a look. My first term, how do we get that? X times x. Now this part, well, this tells me right here, this -6 tells me that my signs will have to be positive and negative. And take a look down here. When you have -6 here, that means this will be like this, and this one will be, let's put, and so when you look at your sides, again, we can see that one of them is positive and the other ones are negative. So we know we have to have a positive and negative. So again, how would I do this? Let's factor out real quick. Let's factor 6. What are your factors of 6? 6 is 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. All right, and now I need to make a -1. So it looks like the 2 and the 3 will work. Now, which one of them? We know one of the signs is positive. We know one's negative. So which one has to be the negative? Well, it's going to be this one here. -3 and a +2. Let's check it and make sure. This is really important when to check to make sure you're getting them right. And then also, I highly recommend that students do the work in pencil, because especially when you start factoring, you're going to be making mistakes all the time. You're going to be checking numbers, and you're going to be trying numbers, and you're going to see if it works. Nope, it needs to go on the other side. So again, this should be done in pencil when you're doing it. But again, we're done. We factored that one. Not too bad. So let's try. What is this next one? Who messed that up? I'm going to change this right here. That's supposed to be an X. So I was going to say, we won't know how to factor that. Let's try this now. All right, so how do we do this one? Again, let's factor this. And there's no picture on the bottom to help us out, but we notice, let's take a first look at our x squared. So we have x times x. That's beautiful, nice and simple. What about that -18? So that -18 means we need a positive and a negative. First, let me figure out what are the factors of 18. 18 is 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6, 4, 5, nope, that's it. All right, so which one of those would give me, oh, it looks like to make that +3, I should use the 6 and the 3. Now, I need to make a 3, and I want that to be a +3. So that means I'm going to make the 6 a positive and this one a negative. So let's check that real quick. Make sure that works. So this would give me a 6x. This would multiply to give me a -3x. And my final check is 3x. So perfect. So there's my answer. So again, as you can see, not much has changed except for when we're writing our numbers in, we're going to have to really pay attention to the signs about which one's positive and which one's negative. And it all depends on that C value. I want you to try problems 4 through 6 on your own. Pause the video and resume the video when you're ready. Now I want to see what you have learned over the last 2 days, so pause the video and complete the check for understanding. When you are finished, or if you get stuck, then resume the video and we can go over the answer to this problem. Let's go over this check for understanding. Match the trinomial with the correct factorization. Justify your reasoning. So below you have some sentence frames that you can fill out when you're done with this. But one method to do this problem is just to factor 7, 8, 9, and 10 and then just match it with the answer. But another way is just kind of reason and think about what goes with what. Like, is there any way you can do this without doing the problem? So for instance, when I look at this problem and I see what happens when you see both of your binomials right here and they're both positive, so a positive 8 and a positive 2 there. So to me, that tells me that this answer is the answer for this one. Because if you think about it, to get a 16, 8 times 2 is 16, there's only 2 possible answers. There's either 9 or 10, but the problem number 10 has a negative 10x, so that's not going to work. So I know A has to go at 9, so problem 9 matches with A. And because of the positive 8 and the positive 2, that's my hint right there. Those are what's telling me how to do this problem. So without even doing the problem, I know that one has to go with that one. Now, well, since you've eliminated this one's done. That means where's the other one that has a positive 16? So when I'm looking for the positive 16, the other one is going to be this one. Because a negative 8 times a negative 2 makes a positive. So I know that one has to go with this one too. So now I have number 10 matches with D because they're both negative. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So that would be my answer for that one. So I just solved 2 of these problems. And now I'm looking at the next one. So now I'm looking at this one. And the only difference between B and C is just one's positive and minus negative, the other one's negative positive. So real quick, let me just do a little bit of math here. Let me write this down, x plus 8 and x minus 2. So this one I would require me to do a little bit of math. X subtract 8 and x plus 2. All right, so let's do a little bit of math and check some things out. So now I would just kind of do the check part. So I would just only check the inside. So I would just go, oh, this is a negative 8x, and this one is a 2x, which is negative 6. And if I look at the other one, this is 8x, and this one is negative 2x, and that gives me positive 6x. So I know the one with the positive 8 is the one that gives me the positive 6. So positive 8. So this one here goes with the positive 6. And C must go with 7. All right. And again, some of you, hopefully some of you saw this and just knew, didn't even have to check it. You could just check it mentally in your head. But if not, that's how I would have done it. And again, if you didn't do it that way either, you could have just factored all the problems and find out what answers are. I hope you're feeling comfortable factoring trinomials. I have provided some classwork to really help you develop your factoring skills. Remember that the answers to your classwork will be in another video. And again, thanks again for watching the video.